There are moments in life when we find ourselves standing at the crossroads of uncertainty, gazing into the vast unknown, wondering if anyone truly understands the desires of our hearts. We live in a world filled with noise, distractions, and endless pursuits, yet deep within us, there is a longing, a yearning for something more, something eternal. Today I want to remind you of a profound truth. God knows what you want. He knows the deepest cries of your heart, the unspoken prayers, the dreams you've tucked away, and the burdens you carry. He knows you better than you know yourself, and His love for you is unwavering. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to feel overlooked, forgotten, or even invisible. We often wonder if anyone sees our struggles, hears our silent pleas, or understands the battles we face. But let me assure you, my friend, God sees you. He hears you. He knows you. The Bible tells us that even the very hairs on your head are numbered. Not a single sparrow falls to the ground without His notice, and you are worth far more than many sparrows. If He cares for the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, how much more does He care for you? You may be asking, if God knows what I want, why hasn't He answered my prayers? Why do I still feel this emptiness? These are questions that many of us wrestle with, and they are not easy to answer. But let me share this with you. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What we often want is immediate relief, quick solutions, or instant gratification. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sees the bigger picture. He knows what we truly need, even when it differs from what we think we want. Think of a loving parent and a child. A child may want to eat candy for every meal, but the parent knows that such a diet would lead to harm. The parent, out of love, provides nourishing food instead. In the same way, God, our Heavenly Father, knows what is best for us. He knows the plans He has for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us hope and a future. Sometimes what we want may not align with His perfect will, and in those moments, His no or not yet is an expression of His love and protection. But let me also say this: God is not indifferent to your desires. He is not a distant, uncaring deity who overlooks your needs. On the contrary, He is intimately involved in every detail of your life. He knows your joys and your sorrows, your triumphs and your failures. He knows the dreams you've buried and the hopes you've dared to hold on to. And He wants to fulfill those desires in ways that bring glory to His name and lasting joy to your heart. The psalmist writes, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." This is not a promise of material wealth or worldly success, but a profound truth about the transformation that takes place when we align our hearts with God's, when we delight in Him, when we seek His presence, His will, and His kingdom above all else. Our desires begin to reflect His. We start to want what He wants, and in that alignment we find true fulfillment. You see, God knows what you want because He knows what you were created for. You were not made to chase after the fleeting pleasures of this world. You were not made to find your identity in your achievements, your possessions, or the opinions of others. You were made for a relationship with your Creator. You were made to know Him, to love Him, and to walk in the purpose He has for your life. And until you find your satisfaction in Him, you will always feel a void that nothing else can fill. Perhaps today you are carrying a burden that feels too heavy to bear. Maybe it's a broken relationship, a financial struggle, a health crisis, or a dream that seems out of reach. You've been praying, waiting, and hoping, but the answers haven't come. Let me encourage you. God is still at work. He has not forgotten you. He is with you in the valley, just as He is with you on the mountaintop. And He is using every trial, every delay, and every season of waiting to shape you into the person He created you to be. The Bible tells the story of Joseph, a young man who had big dreams. He dreamed that one day his family would bow down to him, but the path to the fulfillment of that dream was not what he expected. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. For years it seemed as though God had forgotten him. But in reality, God was working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail of Joseph's life to bring about His perfect plan. When the time was right, Joseph was elevated to a position of great influence. and he was able to save countless lives, including the lives of his own family. Looking back, Joseph could say, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." In the same way, God is working in your life even when you can't see it. He knows the desires of your heart, and he is faithful to fulfill them in his perfect timing, but his timing is not always our timing, and his ways are not always our ways. That's why we must learn to trust him. Even when the path ahead is unclear, we must learn to surrender our plans, our dreams, and our desires to him, knowing that he is a good father who loves us and wants the best for us. And trusting God doesn't mean that life will always be easy. It doesn't mean that you will never face challenges or hardships. But it does mean that you can have peace in the midst of the storm, knowing that God is in control. It means that you can rest in the assurance that he is working all things together for your good. It means that you can hold on to hope even when everything around you seems hopeless, because you serve a God who specializes in miracles. I want to remind you today that God's love for you is unconditional. It is not based on your performance, your achievements, or your worthiness. It is based on his grace, his unmerited favor. No matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, no matter how far you've strayed, God's love for you remains the same. He is ready to welcome you with open arms, to forgive you, to heal you, and to restore you. All you need to do is come to him with a humble and repentant heart. And when you come to him, you can be honest about your desires. You don't have to hide your dreams or pretend that everything is okay. You can pour out your heart to him, knowing that he cares for you. The Bible says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. He wants to hear your prayers, your fears, your hopes, and your dreams. He wants to be involved in every area of your life. But as you bring your desires to him, be prepared for him to refine them. Sometimes what we think we want is not what we truly need. Sometimes our desires are rooted in selfishness, pride, or the pursuit of worldly success. But when we surrender those desires to God, he begins to purify them. He removes the impurities and aligns our hearts with his will, and in that process, we discover a deeper, more fulfilling desire, the desire to know him and to make him known. God knows what you want, but he also knows what you need. He knows the areas of your life that need healing, the relationships that need restoration, and the dreams that need to be revived. He knows the struggles you face and the battles you fight, and he is ready to meet you right where you are, to give you the strength, the courage, and the peace that you need to keep moving forward. So today I invite you to take a step of faith. Bring your desires to God and trust him with the outcome. Surrender your plans to him and allow him to guide your steps. Seek his presence above all else and watch as he transforms your heart and your life. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. God is with you every step of the way, and he will never leave you nor forsake you. As you walk with him, you will begin to see that his plans for you are far greater than anything you could ever imagine. You will begin to experience the joy, the peace, and the fulfillment that come from knowing him. And you will discover that the deepest desires of your heart are found in him. God knows what you want, and he is ready to fulfill those desires in ways that bring glory to his name and lasting joy to your heart. So trust him, seek him, and watch as he works in your life in ways that only he can. God knows your heart, and he understands your deepest desires, unspoken prayers and hidden struggles. Even when you feel misunderstood by the world, when your heart aches with burdens too heavy to share, God knows. He sees beyond your words and actions, into the depths of your soul. Every tear, every longing, every hope that you carry is known by him. He is not a distant observer, but an intimately involved Father who cares about every detail of your life. When you feel alone in your thoughts, when you wrestle with emotions you cannot fully explain, God comprehends the intricacies of your heart. His love for you is not based on mere outward expressions, but on the very essence of who you are. He knows the prayers you whisper in the quiet moments, the fears you hide behind a smile, the struggles you face in silence. You are seen and valued, and in a world that often overlooks and misunderstands, God sees you, hears you, and cherishes you beyond measure. You never have to earn His attention or prove your worth. His gaze is always upon you with love, compassion, and understanding. When you feel invisible, when you wonder if anyone truly cares, remember that God's eyes are fixed upon you. His love is not conditional upon your achievements or perfection. It is an unwavering love that holds you even when you fall short. You are precious to Him, not because of what you do, but because of who you are, His beloved child. No mistake, no failure, no weakness can diminish your value in His eyes. God's wisdom surpasses human desires, and though we often believe we know what is best for ourselves, His ways and thoughts are far higher than ours. We may long for certain things, convinced they will bring us happiness, but God in His infinite wisdom knows what we truly need. He sees the bigger picture, the consequences we cannot foresee, the paths that lead to fulfillment rather than fleeting satisfaction. When He withholds something we desperately want, it is not out of cruelty, but out of a deep, protective love. He knows that not every desire aligns with His best for us, and in His wisdom, He leads us toward what will ultimately bring us lasting joy and purpose. God's love is protective, like that of a loving parent who sometimes says no or not yet to safeguard their child from harm. We may not always understand His reasoning, but His love is never absent from His decisions. Just as a parent refuses to give a child something dangerous, God in His boundless wisdom withholds things that might lead us away from His perfect plan. He is not indifferent to our pain or our longing. Rather, He is shielding us, guiding us, and preparing something far greater than we could imagine. When we feel frustrated by unanswered prayers, we must trust that His refusals are not rejections, but redirections towards something far better. God is intimately involved in your life, not as a distant deity, but as a close personal Father who cares about every detail. He is not watching from afar, indifferent to your struggles. He is present in every moment, walking beside you in your triumphs and trials. He orchestrates circumstances, aligns divine appointments, and speaks through the quiet whispers of your heart. Even when you feel abandoned, He is there working behind the scenes, weaving together a beautiful story that only He can see in full. His involvement is not just in the big moments, but in the smallest, most seemingly insignificant details. Nothing about your life is too minor for His attention or too complex for His intervention. Delighting in the Lord transforms your desires, aligning them with His will. When you seek Him above all else, your heart begins to long for what He desires. The more you draw near to Him, the more your ambitions, dreams, and hopes begin to reflect His purposes. It is not about losing. You were created for relationship with God, made to know Him, love Him, and fulfill His divine purpose for your life. You are not an accident or an afterthought. From the moment of your creation, He designed you with intentionality, giving you gifts, passions, and a unique calling. Your ultimate fulfillment comes not from worldly achievements, but from walking in relationship with Him. The more you seek Him, the more you realize that your purpose is not found in what you do, but in who you are in Him. He desires intimacy with you, a connection so deep that your heart beats in rhythm with His. Every longing you have for meaning and significance is ultimately a longing for Him. God's timing is perfect, and though it may not align with our expectations, His delays are not denials. We often grow impatient, wondering why certain prayers go unanswered, why dreams seem just out of reach. But God sees beyond our limited perspective. What may seem like a delay to us is a part of His divine orchestration. He is never late, never too early. He moves in His perfect time, ensuring that every blessing, every breakthrough, and every promise comes to fruition at the right moment. Trusting in His timing requires surrender, believing that He knows best even when we don't understand. Trusting God in trials is essential because He is with you in every season, using challenges to shape and refine you. Difficulties are not signs of His absence, but opportunities for growth. Just as fire refines gold, trials refine your faith, stripping away the unnecessary and strengthening your character. Every hardship you endure is not wasted. It is used by God to mold you into the person He created you to be. Even in pain, He is present, offering comfort, strength, and the assurance that your struggles are not in vain. Joseph's story exemplifies how struggles are often part of a greater plan. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned, Joseph could have despaired. Yet God was working through every trial, positioning him for a purpose far greater than he could have imagined. What seemed like suffering was actually preparation. Likewise, your difficulties may be setting the stage for something greater. God's plan for you is not hindered by hardships. Rather, He uses them to elevate you into your divine destiny. Surrendering your plans to God is an act of trust, letting go of the need for control and allowing Him to direct your steps. Often we cling to our own visions for the future, afraid to release them to God. But true peace comes when we trust that His plans are better than our own. Surrender is not giving up. It is stepping into a life led by divine wisdom and guidance. When we release our grip, we make room for God to move in miraculous ways, leading us to places we never imagined. God's love is unconditional, not based on performance, but on His grace. You don't have to earn His favor, prove your worth, or strive for perfection. His love is constant, unwavering, and unchanging. No mistake, no failure, no shortcoming can separate you from His love. His grace covers every weakness, every flaw, every moment of doubt. You are cherished, accepted, and deeply loved, not because of what you do, but because of who He is. God's presence brings fulfillment, and true joy comes from seeking Him above all else. The world offers temporary pleasures, but they cannot satisfy the soul's deepest longings. Only in God do we find peace that surpasses understanding, joy that remains despite circumstances, and love that never fails. When you seek Him first, everything else falls into place. His plans for you exceed anything you can imagine or achieve on your own. You are never alone, for He has promised to never leave or forsake you. His faithfulness is unwavering, and He will fulfill His promises in ways that bring Him glory and you lasting joy. In a world filled with uncertainty and chaos, God offers a peace that transcends human understanding. His presence calms anxious hearts, providing assurance even in the midst of life's storms. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances or the absence of difficulties, but on the unwavering presence of God. When challenges arise, when doubts creep in, when fear threatens to overwhelm, His peace remains a steadfast anchor. It is a peace that surpasses human reasoning, offering comfort when everything seems uncertain. People often search for peace in relationships, achievements, or material possessions, but these sources are temporary and unreliable. True peace is found only in God, in the deep trust that He is in control and that His plans are for our good. Trusting in His peace means surrendering the need to understand everything. It means letting go of the anxiety that comes from trying to figure out every detail of life and instead resting in the knowledge that God is sovereign. The world will always present situations that stir worry and fear, but God's peace is a shield against the turmoil. This peace is cultivated through a close relationship with Him, through prayer, worship, and meditating on His Word. It grows as we learn to rely on Him more fully, acknowledging that He sees what we cannot see and knows what we cannot know. Even when we walk through valleys of uncertainty, His peace sustains us. We may not always feel it immediately, but as we continually seek Him, we become more attuned to His comforting presence. God's peace is not merely an absence of trouble, but the assurance that He is walking with us through every trial, holding our hand, whispering His love and encouragement, reminding us that we are never alone. When you feel weak, weary, or overwhelmed, God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. Life is filled with moments that stretch us beyond our perceived limits, where our own abilities fall short and we feel incapable of moving forward. It is in these moments that God's strength becomes most evident. Human strength is limited, fading with exhaustion, emotions, and the weight of burdens. But God's strength is eternal, unwavering, and available to all who seek Him. The beauty of relying on God's strength is that it requires humility, a recognition that we are not meant to navigate life on our own. He calls us to lean on Him, to acknowledge our need for His power to sustain us. When we reach the end of ourselves, when we can no longer rely on our own ability to carry on, He steps in, filling us with supernatural strength that enables us to endure, to persevere, and to overcome. God's strength is not only for moments of crisis, but for daily life. Every day presents challenges, decisions, and situations that require more than what we have within us. From the smallest tasks to the greatest battles, His strength is available. He empowers us to love when it is difficult, to forgive when it seems impossible, to keep going when everything inside us wants to give up. His strength is often revealed in ways we do not expect. Sometimes it is an inner resilience that keeps us standing when we thought we would fall. Other times it is the support He provides through people, circumstances, and divine appointments. His strength is not just about endurance, but about transformation. As we lean on Him, we become stronger in faith, character, and purpose. What once seemed impossible becomes possible through His power. His strength is a gift, freely given and accessible to those who trust in Him. It is not about striving or proving ourselves, but about surrendering and allowing Him to work through us. Trusting God is not just about believing in His promises, but also about taking steps of faith. Faith requires action, a willingness to move forward even when the path is unclear. Often, God calls us to step out in faith before we see the full picture. He asks us to trust Him enough to take the first step, believing that He will guide the next. This is a challenging aspect of faith because human nature desires certainty, a clear roadmap, and guaranteed outcomes. Yet true faith grows in the unknown, in the willingness to trust God's leading even when we cannot see where the road will take us. Throughout the Bible, God's people were required to act in faith. Abraham left his homeland without knowing where he was going. Moses stepped into the Red Sea before it parted. Peter walked on water, trusting in Jesus' command. These acts of faith were not without fear or doubt, but they were rooted in trust. God honors faith-filled steps, meeting us where we are, providing what we need as we move forward. Faith is not passive. It is an active trust in God's character and His promises. It is not merely believing that He can, but living as though He will. It means praying bold prayers, making decisions aligned with His will, and stepping out of comfort zones. It often requires letting go of control, releasing fears, and embracing the unknown. Faith stretches us, refines us, and strengthens our relationship with God. It teaches us reliance on Him rather than our own understanding. Each step of faith leads to greater trust, deeper intimacy, and an increased ability to discern His voice. The journey of faith is not always easy, but it is always worth it. As we take steps of faith, we experience God's provision, His guidance, and His miraculous intervention in ways that strengthen our belief and confirm His faithfulness. Faith is not about having all the answers, but about trusting the one who does. No matter how broken, lost, or far you feel from God, He is a God of restoration. He redeems past mistakes, turns pain into purpose, and brings beauty from ashes. No situation is beyond His ability to restore, no life too shattered for His healing touch. God's restoration is not merely about returning what was lost, but about making things even better than before. He takes what was meant for harm and uses it for good. He weaves together broken pieces, crafting a masterpiece of redemption that testifies to His goodness and power. Many people carry wounds from past failures, regrets, and hurts, believing they are too damaged to be used by God. But His grace is greater than any mistake. His love reaches into the deepest wounds, bringing healing and transformation. He does not see us through the lens of our past, but through the lens of His redemptive work. God's restoration often comes in unexpected ways. Sometimes it is a renewed purpose, an opportunity that arises from past pain. Other times it is a deep inner healing, a freedom from shame and guilt. He specializes in taking what was broken and making it whole. His restoration is not limited to individuals, but extends to relationships, dreams, and even lost time. He restores hope, joy, and a sense of belonging. The process of restoration requires trust and patience. It may not happen overnight, and it may not look the way we expect, but His promise remains. What seems impossible to us is possible with Him. He delights in restoring His children, not only for their benefit, but as a testimony of His power and faithfulness. Every story of restoration is a reminder that nothing is beyond His redemption. When you focus on God's blessings rather than your struggles, your heart begins to change. Gratitude shifts your perspective, reminding you of His faithfulness, strengthening your faith, and helping you see His hand at work even in difficult seasons. It is easy to become consumed by problems, to dwell on what is missing or what is not going as planned. But gratitude redirects our focus, shifting our eyes from our troubles to God's goodness. It is a powerful act of faith, acknowledging that God is at work even when circumstances seem challenging. Gratitude does not mean ignoring difficulties, but choosing to see God's provision and faithfulness in the midst of them. It transforms our attitude, replacing complaint with praise, worry with trust, and discouragement with hope. A grateful heart opens the door for more of God's presence and joy. When we choose to give thanks in all circumstances, we align our hearts with His will. Gratitude strengthens our faith, reminding us of past victories and building confidence for future challenges. It creates a heart posture that is receptive to His blessings. It allows us to experience joy even in the waiting, to find peace even in uncertainty. Choosing gratitude is a daily discipline, a conscious decision to focus on what God has done rather than what we lack. The more we practice gratitude, the more we recognize His goodness in every aspect of our lives. Even in hardships, there are blessings to be found, lessons to be learned, and growth to be experienced. Gratitude changes everything, drawing us closer to God and filling our hearts with the joy that comes from knowing Him. So my friend, as you leave here today, I want you to carry this truth in your heart. God knows what you want. He knows the deepest longings of your soul, the dreams you've dared to dream, and the burdens you've carried in silence. He sees you, He hears you, and He loves you with an everlasting love. You are never alone in your journey, for He walks beside you every step of the way. Trust Him with your desires, even when the answers seem delayed. Surrender your plans to His perfect will, knowing that His ways are higher and His thoughts are greater. When you delight in Him, He will align your heart with His, and you will find a fulfillment that surpasses anything this world can offer. Remember, God's promises are true. He is faithful, and His love for you is unchanging. No matter what you're facing today, hold on to hope. Cling to the assurance that He is working all things together for your good. Your story is not over, and His plans for you are far greater than you can imagine. So, take a step of faith. Bring your desires to Him and trust Him with the outcome. Seek His presence and watch as He transforms your heart, your life, and your future. God knows what you want, and He is ready to fulfill those desires in ways that bring glory to His name and lasting joy to your soul. May you leave here today with a renewed sense of hope, a deeper trust in God's faithfulness, and a heart that is ready to surrender all to Him. Go in peace, knowing that you are loved, you are seen, and you are held in the hands of a God who knows you better than you know yourself. Amen.